Hello, all you fine people out there in YouTube land. This here is the NRA Man Forever, and this is my buddy's Terra Ordnance 1911. It's a GI Expert model, and as y'all have seen in the previous videos, it's a sweet shooter. But unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, my buddy is rather new to firearms, so making this quick video for him. And anybody else out there that owns a gun, or a 1911, I should say specifically, doesn't really know how it works or how to take it apart or maintain it. Just a quick disassembly and assembly video. Cleaning it is not that hard. Once you get it apart, you basically just wipe everything down with some kind of gun cleaner, gun solvent, get all the crud off out of every nook and cranny, and then lightly lubricate it. Doesn't need to be dripping with oil to the point that when you take your hand off of it, your whole hand is coated with oil. All you need is just a little dab here and there. But first things first, as you can see, chamber's empty, no magazine in the mag well. This gun is safe to shoot, or safe to handle right now in this situation. So let's get it taken apart. As you can see, again, on the workbench from my model railroad, I don't have anywhere else really to do this. So let's get started. 1911s are very easy. They're very simple guns. The reason why they're called 1911s is because the basic design has been around since 1911. Relatively unchanged for 102 years. Each different manufacturer, each different model has its own different little quirks that the manufacturer throws in there to make it more tactical or accurate or sporterized or whatever. But essentially, they're all the same basic parts. They all break down the exact same way. That being said, do not attempt to use Colt parts in a Kimber or Para Ordnance parts in a Wilson Combat. Some of them, yes, it'll work out well and you won't know the difference. Others, no. The thing about Para Ordnance is they have, some of their models have an external extractor claw, which would be right here. This one doesn't, but some of them do. So that it plays right back into the whole different quirks and different manufacturers and different models and all that other stuff. Just like you would never dream of putting a part for a Chevy Cavalier engine into a Toyota Tundra. Now, to get started, as you can see here, hopefully, there's a little bushing here. This bushing. You need to start by taking this off. To do that, you press this down, and it rotates out of the way. And then the plunger for the spring comes up and out. And you can just go ahead and take the whole assembly out. Doesn't matter which way you put it back in. The only thing that's important is when you put it back in and reinstall it, this has to be on the end of the spring toward the outside of the dust, or on the end of the dust cover of the frame. After that, you're going to take this bushing and rotate it to about here. Comes straight off. Now, don't be afraid, you're not going to hurt it. Make sure it's empty. Pull it back. Don't pull it all the way back. You don't want it to be able to engage the slide lock. That does you no good. There is a secondary notch cut into the frame, or the slide I should say, right there. Line up that slide lock with that notch. Push on this right here, and then just pull it on out. There you go. No fancy tricks, no nothing. Then it just slides right off. Now, something you need to be aware of, people, is the second part of the spring guide right there. It's not permanently attached to the underside of the barrel. And it's not permanently attached to the spring like in some of these new modern pistols. The spring the plunger for the end, and the actual rod are all 3 separate pieces on most 1911s. Now, you have all that done. What about the barrel? Well, unlike a lot of your pistols where you can simply lift it straight out, you push it straight on through the front of the slide. There is little notches cut into the top of the slide that you can see right there, and there's matching notches cut onto the barrel on the top of it right there. Actually, that'd be the chamber. That locks the action in place when the gun is finished with its cycle, its reloading cycle. The gun fires, the barrel cams down on this little piece right here, and it actually drops down a little bit, not a lot. I'm over dramatizing it just so you get the general visual effect, and the new bullet slides right in as it's forced in from the slide going forward. And when you're putting it back together, there's a couple of little pieces right here. You got to make sure that they are down inside of the frame. These little black pieces you see right here, got to make sure they're down inside, because if not, they will prohibit the slide from going back on correctly. Now, you're going to put it back together. Take it, start with the barrel, slides right on through, and it locks itself into those notches on the top of the slide right here. Then you're going to take the other half of the recoil spring, the guide rod, you're going to place it right there. This little cam needs to be facing towards the muzzle, the front of the gun. You take the slide, very gingerly, very gently, slide it on, and make sure that this thing sits in here and stays in here. Make sure that those 2 little pieces I told you about, they're in, and then it slides back on. Pull it all the way back. You're not going to hurt this thing. Stick the slide lock. God, spacing out here, man. That goes back on the side where the notches are. And you line up that little notch right there with that hole, just the same. Now there is a little trick that you guys need to know about. You can't see it, and I doubt you'll be able to see it if I try to show it to you, but I'll try anyway. There's a little, there it is, that little nipple looking thing right there. When you put this in, put it in, don't force it down and then try to rotate it up, because you'll scratch the shit out of your frame. It won't hurt the gun mechanically, but it just makes it look ugly as fuck. And it ruins your finish right there. Kind of like somebody taking keys to the paint job on your car. You rotate it up till you hear that click, but make sure it's down there. Rotate it up so that it's actually hitting that little nipple, and then you push it down. Now this is in. It's the only real trick to it. Push the slide forward, and it's locked on. It's not going anywhere. You take your spring, you put it on there. If you need to actually see the other end of the recoil rod, you can put the slide back, and you can kind of see it right there, that little dark spot in the middle. Again, it doesn't matter which way your spring goes in, it just needs to go in. And it needs to go on that rod. Push your slide forward. It's on there. Then, this part, this little plunger looking thing, goes right back on here. This bushing, that needs to go on as well. Same way you took it off. Just take it, stick it in, and it doesn't really matter which order you go. The bushing first or the spring first. A lot of times it's easier to get the bushing in and then rotate it way over here out of the way, and then put the spring in. It's all on how you want to do it. Your gun, you practice it, you take it apart however. Push it down in there. Get it in. Again, you are not going to hurt this thing. Take it, and this is hard. Take it, push this bushing down, or push that little plunger down, and rotate this bushing till you hear that click. It's locked in. Make sure that it's locked in before you take your finger off of that, because otherwise it's going to go shooting across the room. Best case scenario, flies across the room, you chase it down. Worst case scenario, you hit somebody in the eye with it. Now, as you can see, the gun is back together. There's no extra pieces. This isn't IKEA. You always want to make sure the same amount of pieces you take out of your gun go right back in the exact opposite order that you took them off. Usually. Sometimes there's a little wiggle room, but usually that's how it works. Now, I'm going to reorientate this camera, show you guys how to do a functions check to make sure your gun is working. This is a dry functions check. There will be no discharge of ammunition. Alright, so your gun's back together. What next? Go to the range and just fire off rounds? No! That's bad! Bad juju! You don't do that. Before you go and fire rounds through a weapon you've disassembled, you always do a functions check. You want to make sure that the gun is safe to handle. So, as you can see, empty chamber, no magazine. Gun's empty. The first thing you do, you either cock the hammer back manually or you cycle the cylinder, or the slide. I've been dealing with revolvers all day. Pull the trigger. Simple as that. Pull it again. 1911s are single action only pistols. What that means is when you pull this trigger, this doesn't come back and fall. That is double action. That means the trigger does two actions with one pull of the trigger. Single action, only one action is done by a pull of the trigger. Next, hold down the trigger, cycle the slide, let off, you'll hear a click, pull the trigger again. That click is the sear resetting. What that means is, at a certain point, when it goes forward, that click is an audible indicator of, I'm now ready to fire again. The point of that was to make sure that the hammer didn't fall holding down the trigger as soon as that slide was locked back into position. That's bad juju as well. That means you got to take your shit to a gunsmith. Otherwise, you're prone to some real bad stuff happening. Real quick. Now, the second part of this functions check does involve live ammunition. So I'm going to stick my finger right here. As you can see, loaded magazine. Gun will be going hot. Be very careful when you're doing this. Make damn sure that this pistol, or whatever firearm this is, that you happen to be doing this with, is pointed in a direction where you're not going to hurt somebody, or there's something that you can easily replace or don't mind getting fucked up in the event of a serious malfunction. So I'm going to bring it down here a little bit. First thing I'm going to do, obviously, I'm going to bring it back. It chambered around. It ejected fine. Let it cycle again. Ejected fine. Let it cycle again. Ejected fine. Cycle again. Ejected fine. Cycle again. Ejected fine. Cycle again. Ejected fine. Cycled again. Ejected fine. Cycled again. That was my fault. I didn't let it go all the way forward. And then it locks on the empty magazine as it's supposed to. Drop the magazine. It should fall free. Hit it. double check it, empty, no mag, pull the trigger. Now that the gun is empty again, stick the empty mag back in. The reason for that, some pistols, to include 1911s, have a safety disconnect. And what that means is, when the magazine is out, even when the gun is cocked, yours doesn't have it. Well, if this did have it, you wouldn't be able to put the gun on safety because there's no need for it. There's no magazine in it. Some pairs do, some pairs don't. This one doesn't, obviously. But double check. You can never be too careful. This gun is safe to fire. It's ready to fire. The only surefire way to know that, though, is to put rounds through it. I don't have anywhere to do that right now, so I'm just going to have to go off my experience and my knowledge. And this gun is functioning like it's supposed to be. Short of firing rounds through it, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to safely handle this pistol. Thanks for watching, guys, and remember, united we stand, divided we fall. Join the NRA.